What's up, guys? This is Drew. Welcome back to the Epic Dad Legacy Podcast. Hey, I am super excited for today's episode. We've got Craig Risoli. Craig is a father of three. He's the owner of High Speed Daddy. He is an epic grower of beards, even though there's a little bit of white in there, and all around incredible human. I've got the opportunity to get to know Craig over the past year and a half or so. Proud to call Craig a mentor, a coach, someone I look up to, and more importantly, a friend. Greg has grown the High Speed Daddy brand from one single product to a company well into the seven figures, all while putting his family first. Craig, thank you so much for coming on today, man. What did we talk about?
There's three things, and maybe I'll add a bonus at the end. But check it out. We talked about how much we both fail at getting our kids to eat dinner.
Truth.
How to go on vacation when you're about to get fired.
Don't recommend it.
And why Army infantrymen are better than everyone else.
I will 100% agree with that.
But here, seriously, we talked a lot about how I built tight containers around a busy schedule that my family really comes first. So that's the important things that you want to check out in there. And then there's a few fun stuff as well.
Awesome. Well, Craig, thanks for coming on, man. Appreciate it. And let's hop into the episode. Are you ready to become the dad you know you are meant to be? Good, because this is the Epic Dad Legacy Podcast, where imperfect action is better than perfect ideas, promises kept are more important than promises made, and nothing happens unless you make it happen. My name is Drew, father of three, and founder of the Epic Dad Company. My mission is to help dads up their game and become the husbands, fathers, and men they're called to be. Thanks for listening. Now let's start the episode. All right, Craig. Craig, man. So the question on everybody's mind is, what do you do to keep the beard looking so fresh?
I shave it off every night and grow it back every morning because I'm a man.
That's like what time is it? 10:20 a.m. shadow.
Yeah, I woke up at 4:30 this morning, even earlier than normal. So that's why it's looking even extra full. Yeah.
Yeah, just some baby oil on it.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. I've always been able to grow a beard, so it's just one of those things, and I just keep it trimmed up now. I like it little kind of boxed out. It annoys me every now and then, but the last time I took it off, High Speed Mama, or my wife, should I say, yelled at me. She's like, "I kind of liked you with the beard," so the beard came right back.
Well, I know we're not on video, but I'm trying to compete with Craig here and not doing a great job.
You'll get there. Little Padawan, you'll be okay.
I do. I guess that's you're like 4 years ahead of me on the path with three kids. So
there you go.
I'll be white by the time I get there.
Yeah, and if you look at me pictures from like 3 or 4 years ago, it was a lot darker than it is now. I'll tell you that. Yep.
Well, Craig, dude, thanks for coming on, man. So just like I'll do like a quick intro and then want to like start diving into some stuff. But so I've had the chance to get to know Craig for I don't know the past year or so, I guess, Craig.
Yeah, maybe even a little longer.
Yeah. And Craig has been instrumental in just kind of like being a mentor, being a coach, being a friend, and just like somebody can bounce ideas off for the Epic Dad Co. and really just like life in general. Craig is kind of like a little bit further down the path than I am with the business, with family, but we have a ton of similarities. And so, struck up a relationship there. I've gotten to know him, and Craig has just been an awesome human being, man. So, Craig, tell us about like what you've been up to, man, the past few years.
Okay, let's see. So we'll talk similarities, right? So yeah. We're both veterans. We both got 3 kids, married for a while. Both were in corporate America, doing our thing. Both running corporate American jobs while in the military at the same time, part time, and trying to do the side hustle. So we're basically twinsies here.
And both infantrymen too. So I don't want
to. Yeah, and infantrymen. So we're a bunch of dumb grunts. So because any normal person wouldn't do what we're doing. But you know what? In order to have what the normal person doesn't have, you got to do not normal things, right? So it's you gotta do exceptional and extraordinary things to do that. So giving you a little story of mine. So turned 40 this year, married for 11 years now, with my wife for damn near 18 years, 3 kids, 8, 6, and 3, older boy, 2 younger girls. And there's a reason why I talk about family first there. because I make a lot of my decisions and damn near all my decisions based around how it's going to affect my family. To the point where I even created a business around that. So I created a business called High Speed Daddy, where we help men provide, protect, and connect, and we sell the baddest and most awesome dad gear on, for dads on the go. So everything from diaper bags, backpacks, lunch bags, jackets, apparel, et cetera, and a lot of cool stuff out there that all has a military kind of aesthetic and look to it. So there's my little there's my little my little
and I'll plug it too. Like
little plug there.
We have one of the diaper bags, and we use it every single day, and we've used it for, I don't know, a couple years now, and like not a single thread on that has come off, and like we put it through the ringer, man. So just like super quality. So I will give Craig a plug because he's really humble, but it is an awesome backpack. A lot of also like really, really cool stuff out there too. So if you guys are into it, definitely give Craig a shout.
Appreciate it, man. So I'll backtrack from there. So always kind of had the entrepreneurial thing in me, but also was very mechanically inclined at a young age. Wanted to go pretty much become an auto mechanic, motorcycle mechanic, things along those lines. Convinced by my parents that I was okay in math and science, and why don't I just take that a few steps up on that level and go become an engineer and design that stuff instead of actually just working on them. And that was very important for parents that didn't go to college for me to go to college and actually get a degree. So kind of their American dream. And I'll circle back around to that open loop as well with the American dream. So went to school.
Where'd you
Temple University. 4.5 years later, graduated with a Bachelor of Science in Mechanical Engineering. Not that I am super smart, just worked my ass off and got by on the curve. So one of those things was fine for my father. D is for degree. And all I had to do was show him that paper. And that was the first notch in fulfilling, one of my parents' dreams there.
Is that your dream too, though?
It was, because at that point I had some internships. I was doing some cool stuff. I was in the automotive industry a little bit. I was apprenticing, doing internships for a race car team that was part of the Grand Am circuit. I went to do the 24 hours at Daytona, worked in the pits and things along those lines. So that was pretty cool. But right out of college, around 04, 05, I basically got my first job, which was I started an internship with a company that built house fans and things along those lines, fans and heaters that you can find at Target and any other retail store, and just jumped right into industry essentially, like no break, nothing. I took the first job that was kind of offered to me because it was a little bit hard to get jobs at that time. Worked that for a year, translated into another job back in my home. Moved back to my hometown. Lived with my parents for a while, rekindled things with my wife, who at the time, and I'd gone to school with her to kind of close that loop there.
Yeah, did y'all date in high school at all?
We didn't. We dated each other's friends. We were those two. Like I dated all her friends, she dated all mine, and it wasn't until I kind of moved back home and we just kind of hung out together a little bit. So basically when we were like 21, 22 on, started hanging out more closely type thing. So just working a corporate job, scaling the ranks, going up, things along those lines, and had these gut feelings of I should do something else. This was post 9/11. My grandfather was a World War II POW, always had a big military influence, things along those lines. I had talked to recruiters a bunch of times. I had a lot of friends that joined the military in those days. But I kept making excuses. I kept saying, this isn't for me. I'm already on a different path. Now I'm too old to go, 25, 26, average age to enlist 17 to 22, blah, blah, blah. Things along those lines. And it wasn't until basically I just gotten married. I was just under 30 years old. And I had this gut feeling again, like, I got to do this. And so I talked to my wife and she's like, listen, if you don't do this, it's going to be a regret. It's going to be a lifelong regret. And she's like, I won't stand for that shit for you. So she made the decision for me. And she's like, you're going to go join the military. We're going to put everything else on hold and do that, So, it's, oh, let me see here. What about now?
Now I got you. Yep.
Okay.
Go back and cut that. That's no worries, dude.
All right, so I'll regroup a little bit. So my wife essentially made the decision for me to join the military and have no life regrets. Um, and because of that, with her approval, and needing to satisfy this gut feeling urge that I've had for a number of years, I kind of dropped everything and at 30 years old joined the army. And to give people, a little heads up, I didn't end up going full time active duty. I ended up joining the National Guard because I didn't want to end up displacing my wife and interrupting her career that she was on. And not for nothing, I actually had a very good career at that point as well, and I didn't want to disrupt that a hell of a lot. So, if I were to join active duty, the Army would probably send me at the needs of the Army, which could be
Yep.
freaking anywhere in the world, Korea, Washington, Germany, et cetera, which not for nothing would probably be cool in some, aspects. Um, but I said, I'm a little bit older. Let me do this and whatnot. And I quickly found out that 2 weeks a year,
Yeah,
one weekend a month, 2 weeks a
it's not
year
as
is
advertised, is it?
is a fucking joke. I think my first year in the books, I had 120 days or something
Yeah,
like that.
dude. So
Because
yeah, 2020
yeah,
for me was I think yeah, around 3 months in uniform or so,
yeah,
with all the kind of civil unrest and protest and COVID response. And then in 21 there was the Capitol that we were there for like 3 weeks. And yeah, it's definitely a little bit more than advertised.
especially when you're good at it. Because when you're good at
Yeah,
it, they're like, oh, we want you to go to this training school. We
yeah,
have this
yeah, yeah.
slot open. Performance punishment.
Yeah,
When you're good at it, they want you to do more of it. And here's more responsibility. And
I
here
know. I
more
tell my
schools
wife
to go
all the time, like I should just be a shit bag and like like
to.
nobody will ever ask me to do anything.
So, it was one of those things. And, I thought I'd just kind of get it through my systems, signed up for initial three. 3 years came around. I looked at my wife. I was like, I'm really good at this. I'm doing great things. And to just backtrack a little bit there, for talking about kids and whatnot, it was 2 weeks before I shipped out for basic training that we found out we were pregnant
Yeah,
with
that's what I was
baby
gonna
number
ask you.
one.
Did you know? Did you have any kids at the time?
Uh, no, well, I guess yes, if it was
Yeah,
within my
yeah,
wife. So uh, part of the thing that sucked about baby number one is I wasn't around for half the pregnancy,
yeah,
uh, which I don't want to say is a regret on my behalf, but I missed out on that. My wife was, she was in the house alone. Had our dogs to keep her
yep,
company. I did have a very strong support network though, which is something if we translate to entrepreneurship and side hustles and things like that. Like you got to have a great support network, whether you're leading into a mentor, whether you're leading into family members and things along those lines, friends. My wife had that while I was away, which was something that was very instrumental, especially because there's very limited communication between me and my wife for
yep,
those fucking, I don't know, 4 months. Because I went from basic training to AIT right
yep,
to airborne school as well.
yeah,
So, like all through.
yeah.
So,
That's it's tough, man. It like when you like. So I was active, but that was when I was young, right? Like right
mhm,
out of college. And so just I don't know if you know my story. I'll kind of tell you like 30 seconds.
mhm,
Is like I did undergrad, and I knew like since I was young that I was going to join the military like at some point, right? I don't know like why, like nobody like in my direct family, as far as like father, my father didn't serve, but both my
mhm,
grandparents did. I think the inflection point for me was definitely 9/11. Yeah, I'm a little bit younger than you are,
mhm.
but can vividly remember like ninth grade health class, like, hey, this happened, and just feeling very strongly about it. And then had the opportunity to go play baseball at college, so I kind of put it off until after college. And I think it was sometime still when I was in high school, that like the event that impacted it for me, that like yes, I'm going to go do this, was Pat Tillman. And
Yep.
like, there's a lot of controversy around his death and friendly fire and things like that. But like, take all that aside, like, here's a dude that was making millions of dollars in the NFL. And, my thought was, if he's going to do that, like, I have no excuse in the world, like, not to serve. Right. So that was it for me, man. Like, I wanted to name our son Pat, but got shot down by the wifey on that one. But, but I mean, that's how big of an impact it was for me. But like when I did basic and AIT and even deployment, like I was married but no kids, so it's a little bit easier to kind of make that separation. But in the National Guard though, like I joined that after we had our first daughter, and I had to go to OCS, like the accelerated OCS program, which is 8 weeks.
Mhm.
Just like basic training again for officers, like no phones, like no communication. And my daughter was I don't know, 8 months old or so. So, missed, 2.5 months of her life right there. And then had to go back to Arizona for Bullock. And even though that's like, it's like classroom and you have your phone and stuff, like, I'm still
You're
halfway
still
across.
away. You're not
Yeah.
around to help your wife during
Yeah.
that
I'm
time,
in
right?
Arizona.
Yeah.
And that was,
Yeah.
like 5 months,
Yeah.
when my second child was really little. And like, that was super rough, man. That was like the hardest point in our marriage, like by far, were those 5 months. So yeah, completely understand there, man. It's a, um, I don't know. It's tough. It's very, very tough. I mean, to kind of like balance that feeling of like, I want to do more, but I also have responsibility in my family. It's like, it's hard to balance those two thoughts at the same time.
No, no, I'm right there with you. So when I ended up, my term was coming up, my 3 years were almost done. I was talking to my wife, and I'm like, I'm pretty good at it. We had my son and my middle daughter was born at the time. She was a newborn, and my wife was like, not going away long times. I can handle this and that and blah blah. And decided that I'd greenlist for another three. So during that in next enlistment is when things at the corporate job were starting to go not so well. Essentially, I took a promotion, chasing money to chase a career ladder and this and that, which increased responsibility away from home even more, travel, longer hours, more stress, anxiety, things along those lines. Young kids at home, plus doing the military part time, going away on military trips, worrying about how the family is when I'm away, how the business is when I'm away, or business, I mean the corporate job and things along those lines. And it was all coming to a perfect storm of shit, essentially, when it comes down to it. Like things were not going well for me personally. I mean, you're talking depression, anxiety, things of that sorts. Kept bringing it home, and I knew that was not the right thing to do. It was not fair to my wife. She was already having, some things going on with cabin feverish and postpartum and
Mhm.
things along those lines. So we had a bunch, like you said, relationship being tested. Like I don't know if I'd say I felt like we were strong and there was never an issue of like, oh man, I'm just quitting this,
Yeah.
but it was fucking stressful. Like it was not fun period of time. So during that time, I started looking for other options and, saying that I've kind of always been entrepreneurial and always dabbled and this and that, always had side hustles going on, selling stuff on Craigslist, selling stuff on eBay. When they had the eBay stores, I'd contract for other people and take percentage of sales and, always kind of new e-commerce and whatnot. And then came across, some stuff on how to sell on Amazon. I said, well, that's really cool. I can develop a product because that's my background.
Mm.
Um, but I don't know how to sell it, don't know where to sell it besides just a Craigslist eBay thing. And came across a community on how to sell on Amazon. This was circa 15, 16, somewhere in there,
Okay.
because I did investigate it and push it off for a period of time. Like, oh, this is kind of like the military where I'm just like getting this gut thing, but I'm going to
Yeah.
suppress it for a while because it'll just go away. And I'll just keep doing my rat race thing because I'm making good money, although my life, I'm not happy. I'm doing what I'm supposed to do, quote, quote. One of those things. I'm successful in everyone else's eyes except my own.
Yeah.
Uh, so, you know, I started to kind of line things up at that point. Like, I think I want to do this Amazon thing. I'm going to give it a shot. I'm going to figure it out. Things with the corporate job had continued to kind of just go bad to the point where um, I had a stellar reputation at the company for like 11 years. Climbed all the ranks to the point where they gave me this promotion, and I other promotions, but this was a pretty solid one. Um, and within like 6 months, like things just went to crap. Like I wasn't well supported. I probably wasn't as prepared for that position as I should have been, or as they thought I was. I had actually applied for another job, but they're like, well, this one's better suited for you. So they convinced me to take that one by dangling some money out there. Um, this and that. I did not get along with the people that I work with. I tried to go to HR and say, listen, this isn't working out. I'd like to go back to kind of where I was. I don't mind taking a pay cut, back to where we were and this and that. And that's kind of like a job killer in corporate America when you're
Yeah.
like,
If you get to a certain level and
yeah,
then,
you get to a certain level, you're like, this isn't working. I just want to go back to where I was. And they're like, oh, he can't
yeah,
do
it's
it.
hard to
He's
do that.
yeah, yeah, one of those things. But like that's what I felt was the right thing. So naturally, I got my hand slapped for that. And with that said, review came around, performance review time. And even though the first 6 of the months of the year were great in my previous position, the following 6 months was not as great. And they ended up putting me on performance improvement plan, PIP, which is essentially corporate America's cover your ass, thing for we're going to let you go soon,
Yeah, let's have some paper.
unless you kind of,
Yeah,
shape up. So that was kind of that was a big turning point for me of like, wow, like I don't want to say I sacrificed, but I worked here for 11 years and had
after
stellar
6 months.
reputation. And then I started getting into some issues, went to you for help, and now you're punishing me for it. Well, I'm old school Italian. Like, fuck you. One of those things like, you want to play games. Okay, fine.
Were
Well,
you running High Speed Daddy at this time that you were taking
at that time, it was there was I was still dabbling. I was still kind of investigating stuff. But once like that PIP came, it was like the motivation I needed to say, we're doing this.
yeah.
We're going to make this work.
Yeah, it's just that
We're going to go deep.
you kind of see the writing on the wall, like you said, like
Yeah.
you've given 11 years to this, and like you're a number, you know.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, and I mean, I've had the same type things, and just kind of like had the mindset of like, dude, like if I were to quit or if I were to get fired, or let's say like like God forbid something happened to my family, and like I want to take some time off, like they would replace me in 2 seconds,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And so yeah, totally understand, man. Yeah, just kind of a shitty feeling to be like I've worked so hard, given so much to this company, and then especially after like raising your hand and being like, hey, I need some help here. Uh,
Yeah.
just kind of turning their back on you.
And so I mean, with that motivation, it was one of those things. I went to my wife and I was like, listen, I'm pretty much done here. Like, I don't even have the motivation to go in there and like smile anymore. Like literally broke down, cried in front of her, and I was like, listen, I'd rather go gas station and pump gas. And there's no disrespect against people pumping gas and stuff like that. It was just comparatively speaking, I was like, I'm going to do something drastically different because I don't want to deal with that shit anymore. Um, so what I in turn did in my head, because I'm not a spontaneous person. Like, I wouldn't just go in and quit the next day, because that would have been smart with a 3 and 1 year old, and things along those lines. So I started developing a plan. What can I do to get out of here? What can I do to make my life better? What do I want my life to look like? And that's where I started going heavy into the Amazon world, developing products. And I came across a blog post where it was like an idea generator for products. And essentially, it's something called a touch list, where from the first thing you touch in the morning to the last thing you touch at night, you jot it down on a piece of paper, and there's hundreds of items. And basically, you start with a set of parameters and criteria of how to narrow that list down to some sort of product that you'd want to improve upon, change, and things along those lines. Do your research onto Amazon and other e-commerce stores, and do your market research. Like, is it something that you could make better, change a color, um, merge with other things to sell something better and fix a problem, add value to the world. And essentially, what I came up with was, at the time, something that I can't, I can't talk about because it's keyword and trademark protected by a competitor of mine. But I generated a military looking diaper bag for dads. And when I say military looking, is just something that's rugged, hiking bag looking, very robust and durable and things like that. So basically, a backpack for dads, set up for babies, with a military kind of range bag or assault bag, looking thing. Because at the time, I was carrying literally one of my range bags from the military, or assault packs, I'm sorry, from
Mhm.
the military, as a diaper bag, but it didn't have all of the characteristics that my wife's diaper bag did, such as insulated pockets for bottle holders, stroller straps, changing pad, wipes, pouch, and a whole bunch of other things. So I say, cool, I'm going to take those and I'm going to put them into a military bag, and I'm going to make like badass dad diaper bag. And that's, essentially what I did. And, I went hard into that industry. Who's selling products like that? There was only probably two, maybe three people that were selling backpacks like that at the time, which at first deterred me. I was like, oh, someone's already doing this. I can't do it because someone
Yeah,
else
that's
is
a good
doing
thing, though.
it.
Makes
But
makes making money.
exactly,
Yeah,
I mean, as a beginning entrepreneur, you're like, someone else is doing it. I have
yeah,
to invent something, that no one else did before. And I'm like, no,
yeah,
no, 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 man,
yeah.
just be Dyson. Be Dyson. Vacuum's been out there for 50 years. You come in and revolutionize the industry. So I didn't know that at the time. But I came back around and I said, gut feeling again, go deeper on this. So I analyzed those 2 or 3 companies, who the owners were, all their products, anything I could dig up, where they're manufactured, how they're manufactured, all the reviews, positive and negative, and did my market analysis on that and decided that I believe I had a better story. I could design a better product and I could overtake a sales channel that they were probably underlooking.
Mhm.
So, uh, long story short, that's what I did. I in the meantime, the corporate job was still not going very well at that time. I fulfilled the obligations of the PIP, which was like 30 days and certain tasks I had to do. I think during those 30 days, I took a 2-week vacation because fuck them. Um,
That is
sorry, this
awesome.
this was one of those like prior to personal development and entrepreneurship style things. So it was very, 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 very lots of retribution
Oh,
there.
man. All right, I'm going to the beach.
Yeah, pretty much. It was like, "Yeah, see you guys later." Um, so I came back. I fulfilled the obligations of the PIP, and you know, at that time, I had already done samples and prototypes for the High Speed Daddy diaper bag, and uh, essentially made the commitment to place the first order of inventory with a contract manufacturer
Mm,
because I had no skills to sew one of these things up myself, let alone hundreds of them. So got all that done. It's on order, and just decided at that point I was like, you know what, I can't do this anymore. I'm not spending a lot of time around my kids. I wanted to. I had a 3 and a 1-year-old at the time. My wife was a full-time teacher. Sharing, asking a lot of grandma to help out. We had nursery school going on as well. All that kind of adding up, and I'm going, okay, I'm going to step back from corporate. I'm going to be a stay-at-home dad. I'm going to work every freaking cash job I can find. Before the call we were talking about, I spent years doing commercial snow plowing. There you go. you know, uh, things along those lines. I had a handyman business. I want to say business. I was pushing out on Craigslist. That I did handyman repairs and clean gutters and spackling and painting, and I did all that stuff. Once I decided to step away from corporate, which was, and I'll tell you the story because it's kind of funny. Um, Back into the FU thing of the old job. So my boss, who I really liked, my boss, but he was new to the company. It's above them and others that I didn't get along with. He was a Royal Air Force guy, British guy.
okay.
So we always had a kind of
I
a little bro thing there. And he comes in and he's like, okay, you fulfill the obligations of your PIP, and you can't kind of f up after this, or else you're kind of out. It's one of those things. So I was like, I get it, I get it. I was like, did HR sign off on it? Blah blah. He's like, yeah, HR signed off and this and that. I'm like, cool. Well, why don't you have a seat? Because I got something to tell you. And I literally pulled the paper out and I go, it's already signed. Here's my 2-week notice. And he's like, hold on, mate, hold on. He's
yeah.
like, yeah, you sure don't want to go to the pub and have a pint? It was one of those things. I was like, I'll go to the pub and have a pint, but it's still not changing my mind of what I'm doing right now. So it
Dude,
was one of those
that
things.
is such a ballsy move.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
that's I know you have, like, at this point, you haven't had any sales from High Speed Daddy, right? Like, you have
yeah,
0 revenue coming in from there?
yeah. I just have inventory on order.
Yeah, like,
So
yeah,
this was around October of 16.
okay.
So I registered the company, did all the work and this and that and blah blah blah. Starting around August of 16, the end of October of 16, I left corporate. You know, Fast forward, inventory didn't come in until January of 17, and then sold first products in February of 17.
Even then,
So
it's not like, I mean, I'm sure you were probably making 6 figures, like,
mhm,
you had, like,
yep,
good income coming in, so, like, even as you start to get sales, like, I'm sure that wasn't going into your pocket, you know?
yeah. So yeah, that's a whole learning curve, right? Fast forward. I mean, I didn't take anything out of the company for damn near 18 months after I started selling product.
Yeah.
Uh, Good, bad, or indifferent. That's just I didn't know how because, and again, we're fast forward a little bit. It's like we were pretty successful at the get go. we were selling out product just as like other orders were coming in. So
Mhm.
we did go out of stock, but I tried to make it a limited time as possible. So there was, maybe 1, 2 weeks we're out of stock, and then we'd load back in, and sales rank would be great again, start selling. Like every time an order came in, um, I'd be scraping funds together and like, okay, translate all the profits to the next order, scale, let's go bigger this time, let's add on another color. And that's how we kind of scaled. But not taking anything out for those, give or take 18 months actually enabled us to scale to the point where when those 18 months came around and I ended up, switching an accountant, he ended up changing my business entity, changing from a sole proprietor LLC to an S corp, where you have to take a reasonable salary, quote marks, reasonable
Yeah,
salary
reasonable.
within the eyes of the IRS and this and that, which was a fifth maybe of what I was making prior in
Yeah,
corporate
that's
America. And
like
I was drooling over that fifth because it had gone, well,
yeah,
down.
you have
I mean, that
18
was from
months.
selling
Yeah.
product. I didn't, another 4 or 5 months on top of it. It was almost 2 years. I had not had a quote steady income. It was,
Yeah.
I had part-time military, which, as in the guard, it was not much. I was doing training. Um, so there was a couple schools. I jumped on those. I had opportunities. There was a 3 month period where I was like a assistant NCO, a training NCO. So I jumped in there while there was a transition in the troop. So there was some things going on. Again, I worked every cash job I could. But the biggest thing to that is I had planned for that. With everything going on, um, I had planned and put money away for a rainy day.
Mhm.
And this was the rainy day. And I had promised when I left corporate America, I looked at my wife, I said, our life is not going to change. Our lifestyle is not going to change. We might cut back on a few things, but if we want to take a vacation, we're taking a vacation. I did not want my kids, who were young at the time, to notice that there was a significant difference. Like, we're not going to go sell all our cars and drive like a beat up
Mhm.
Honda Civic and stuff like that. We're not going to turn cable off completely. We discontinued
Yeah,
HBO. Like,
probably.
we cut back, but not that it was super noticeable. Like I said, I worked as much as I could, hustling. We had some money again, and to be honest, we didn't have to dip into it all that much. I think we had to dip in the summer of 17 because my wife is a teacher, wasn't getting paid in the summer, so we had to dip into savings a little bit there. But other things, we were really tight. Wasn't we weren't spending frivolously. We were, maybe we didn't go out to dinner, maybe we didn't eat out as much. Things along those lines. You just cut back. Sacrifice quote today for a better tomorrow,
Yeah.
and that's what we did.
Yeah. I mean,
So
it's tough, man. Like I'm in, somewhat of a situation that a lot of guys are in, too. I'm sure that are listening that are working in corporate America. That's like, you work super, super hard, you develop skill sets, et
mhm,
cetera, and you start making enough income to where, you're like, well, shit, man. Like if I did break out on my own, it's almost like restarting, right?
yeah,
It's like I'm at this level where I'm making, decent six-figure salary. And you start to weigh those options, if like, well, if like all that's gonna be gone, right? Like all I worked for there, like to get this level to be comfortable. So,
and I mean,
yeah,
that's what they call it, the rat race. I mean,
yeah, the golden handcuffs, man. Mhm.
yeah, exactly. I mean, one of the things that, a couple of things we had going for us, and it was actually very huge. Not looking back on it, and I'm super grateful and appreciate is my wife worked a full-time job and we had health benefits under her. That was
Yeah,
huge.
yeah,
That was a big up for us. So if you're going to do it, I'm saying like make sure your shit's lined up as
yep,
much as you can. It's not just, and I've seen people do it like, I'm just quitting and I don't have a firm plan. I think I'm just going to go do this. And I'm like, no, man, like you gotta line this things up. You got to think about all these things so that you're not going to jeopardize your family's, sense of being,
mhm,
and whatnot. And to be honest, looking back on it again, and I've said this numerous times, that if I had to do it over again, I probably would have let them lay me off. I would have had damn near 4 months of severance plus 6 months of unemployment on top of that. Like, I would have had a fucking huge safety net just in that aspect. I could have applied to inventory and this and that.
mhm.
On the flip side, what I
You'd
did
you'd have
was
been
I gave
miserable.
myself motivation
Yeah,
by
you'd
not
have,
doing that. I
yeah,
didn't have a choice. I had to make it work. I like
that you would have been miserable for those, those 6 months or however
yeah.
long you worked there.
Yeah, like I did what Tony Robbins said. I think Cortez did back in the day. Is like I burned the ships to win the war. Like I couldn't leave the island. so we had to win. It was one of those things. So I use that motivation every day. And it's not that like I worked my ass off every day doing things. Me quitting corporate America was not about just me replacing income. It was about me spending more time with my family as well. So as I mentioned before, like the stay-at-home dad aspect, like I became the guy who ran the kids everywhere. I brought the kids to school. I picked them up from school. Grandma's helped out a little bit, but what that entitled me to do was get time blocks here and there. I did not work, like 8 a.m. to like 12, a.m. every day, hustling, 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 Gary V, style stuff. Like, no, I was dad. I was doing the food shopping. I was doing the cooking. And, my wife was the sole breadwinner at that point, more or less. Like I had to pick up everything else and make sure that the household still ran. And I got to spend all this time with the kids, like which I hadn't done before. So that was new. That was cool. But I made sure I got my time blocks in.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to dive into is like, I mean, you're running a business, right?
Mhm.
That's in startup mode. So and I can attest to this, there's a billion things to do. And like, even if you work 24/7, you're not going to get them all done. So like, how did you balance your time there? And like, what approach did you have to say like, hey, I want to make sure that I'm spending the time with my kids, that this is the reason that I'm doing this, right? So like, what did your like prioritization methodology look like, and how do you kind of block those times off?
Yeah. So I knew I had certain time blocks where I had freedom to work on stuff myself. So I remember in those early days that it was like 2 hours in the morning, I think 2 hours in the afternoon. And then after the family went to sleep, that's when like I'd hustle hard. I'd literally
Mhm.
work until I couldn't keep my eyes open. So that'd be like the long nights until like 2, 3 a.m., go to sleep, wake up at 7 the next day. Good, bad, or indifferent. That's what I did. Like the body suffered a little bit from it. I was still exercising at the time. I was still in the military. So like I was making it happen.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to like. I mean, you look on social media and like, there's this big thing out there right now about like, and I don't disagree with this about like self care, right?
Hmm.
And like, I'm 100% on board with that, right? But then like when you're trying to grow a company, and it's like, oh, you got to have a 3 hour like morning routine, and like, it's like, dude, I don't have time for that shit, like,
Hmm.
so I think there's a balance between
Absolutely.
like not sleeping, because you need sleep to be effective, but also like being able to
Getting
put in
shit
the
done.
hours, yeah, that you
Yeah.
need to do to move things forward.
Yeah. So the self-care, I think, prevents burnout.
Yeah.
That's what happens. So because that's not sustainable, that path that I was on.
Mm.
To do that. And don't get me wrong, there'd be afternoons where I was like, okay, I got 3 hours right now. Like half hour of that, I'm taking a fucking power nap.
Yeah.
like that shit was real. Had to, no choice, because I saw the fog coming and I had some self-awareness around it, and things along those lines. But it was a challenging time just because I had to figure out how to make things work, and I was all new to the game. It's not like this was a second or third business I was creating. In the days where I'm at now, where I'm like, okay, how can I fit this into a tight schedule already? It was one of those like, I have some time here. How do I occupy it and fill it? And what I did was my goal was to do 1 to 3 things that day that would propel the business forward to the next stage. So 1 to 3 tasks. That was it. I kept it simple, stupid as much as I could. And if I did that one thing, if I got that one lead magnet up, magnet up, and it was working, like success, that thing's done. I can move on. It might look like shit, but it's functional. People can enter their emails and it goes to my MailChimp account.
Yeah.
Success. So it was things along those lines. And I always kept in my head that I did not have to chase perfect. Good is good enough. Move on. I can come back and revise it. And later on, I found out that that was actually a very good and better thing to do, because I'd take the feedback from other people that didn't like how it was anyway,
Yeah.
and then I tailor it to what they wanted.
Yeah,
You know,
there's a saying that like, you can polish a golden turd, as much as you want to, but at the end of the day, it's still a golden turd and
yeah,
nobody wants it. So like, unless you get things out in the market and get feedback, like you could
exactly.
yeah, you could work, for a year on like a product, and then you put it out there and people are like, yeah, this is stupid. I don't want this. It's like a better approach, is like to develop a prototype and that's it and go to market, right? Like an MVP
Yeah,
product, or even what's better, is probably like try to get some sales like even before you develop it, right? And try to like take those actions, and like you said, it doesn't have to be perfect. Like done is better than perfect.
yeah. And it's not that I knew everything. I was learning along the way. So I utilized something called just-in-time learning, where like I learned what I had to at that
Yeah.
moment and that day or the night before, whatever it might be, to work on it, experiment, blah, 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 to complete it and then move on, to the next. It wasn't like I'm going to go read 10 different books. I'm going to have this in-depth business plan. High
Yeah.
Speed Daddy had zero fucking business plan. I'm a 7-figure seller now, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's one of those things like
there's this book. I don't know if you've read it. I forget the author. I'm gonna look it up right now because it's amazing. It's called Ready, Fire, Aim.
Yep. Yeah, I've heard of it. I
think
haven't
it's
read it, but I've heard of it.
Michael Masterson. I'm gonna look it up right now. Hold on. Ready, Fire, Aim book. It's incredible. Who's it by? Who's it by? Who's it by? Sorry. Yeah, Michael Masterson, which is a pen name
Gotcha. Okay.
for some like incredible marketer. But it's broken out into 3 sections. It's broken out into 0 to a million to 5 million, and then like 5 to 20 or something like that.
Okay.
And I have read chapter 1. That's it.
Yeah, there's no reason to move on.
Yeah, I don't need to know what a $5 million business does because like I'm not
there. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, you can direct it towards like maybe little bits of it where you're like, okay, I want to know these things
Yeah.
in order to orient it that way. But you don't need to know those things. I didn't need to know how a CEO operated in a company when I first started the business. Now I do because I have several people working underneath me, and it's all about, relationship and human resources and things along those lines. And I'm still very much in the business and the product development because I like doing that stuff. So I'm not just a sole business owner, or I'm not just a CEO. I wear many hats, but I need to know those things now. So when I first got started, and through our mutual friend and my business partner George, when I brought him in, I said, I'm really good at doing these things. You're really good at marketing and these things. I need someone to compliment me, and I joined his mastermind and we worked together and this and that and blah, 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 to the point where I was like, hey, dude, I love you. Hey, brother, but I need to leave your mastermind because I've outgrown it. And he goes, that's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
That you're supposed to develop to a certain point and get those knowledge and skills so that you move on to the next level. And I'm like, okay, good. Because I thought this was going to be hard for us, to do this. He goes, no, that's the point. You need to take those skills and now translate it onto like something that's going to help you be a CEO, COO, CFO, things along those lines. So, that's just different stages, but I didn't need to know that shit at the beginning. At the beginning, it was like, how do I get this out the door? How do I sell it? How do I take the funds and reinvest them into new products and whatnot? And then I developed it over the years. And now 6 years later, I don't want to say things are on autopilot, but we've done okay. I used to have some scarcity around it and, humbleness, and I still have the humbleness, but it's one of those things like I never patted myself on the back for what we've built, right? 6 years later, I'm like, well, we got through the first year, we got through the 3 years, now we've got through 5 years, we got through a fucking pandemic. I'm like, at some point, like I have to give myself a little credit that you know what you're doing, right? And at the same time, I have no fucking clue what I'm doing. That's the funny part.
That's probably the secret too, is like, like you look at all these big companies and stuff, and the real secret is nobody knows what they're doing.
Yeah.
Right. Like, like you look at these huge ones, and I've done some like consulting work and stuff too. And like, you're just incredibly surprised at like this, billion-dollar company. And like, you go in there and like, you think it's gonna be these incredibly intelligent people, which they are, but they're still learning as well.
Same problems. Same problems on a different scale, when it comes down to it, so it's, and I kind of like working the smaller business entrepreneurial stuff because you can react faster. It's a quicker game. You don't have to wait for certain bureaucracy and stuff. And I remember those days in corporate and whatnot. And it's like, no, I'm good where I am. And it's part of the reason where, not for nothing, I don't want to take High Speed Daddy to a $50 million company, right? It's like I don't want to take on those headaches. And if we do, I just want to be a director and someone that's coming to me for certain decisions and whatnot. I don't want to be in the business at that time because I don't want those hassles and headaches and the depression to start again, or anxiety, because I'm cool being a father to an 8, 6, and 3-year-old. So I've had opportunities go into other businesses. I've done a couple, but I haven't gone crazy, because I don't want to spread myself too thin, because I know my priority is my family. Closing that loop. So
so like, so just to kind of unpack some stuff too, Craig, like, like you were able to start this business. Obviously it takes a lot of time and effort, like unbelievable effort, to make it successful. and you were able to create tight containers around family because that was the priority, right? So I'm sure like when you set up your week, your month, whatever, it's like I'm going to jot those family things down first, put that on my calendar because that's my priority,
Hmm.
and then whatever time is left, I'm going to make that most effective as possible. So like how did you make that time most effective, and like how did you set yourself up for success to make sure you're in the right mind space to make that time successful and effective?
All right, so work-life balance. It's hard. It's hard to keep things in balance. You can work towards it, but things are just never going to be in balance, depending on what the priorities are of the time. Um, but there's things you can do and set the tight containers. You know, you can set up your schedule a certain way and prioritize. Like my family schedule. Like I had to pick up my kids and drop them off and do food shopping and this and that. Like all that stuff was like necessity. I could tailor some of it, but certain things were like non-negotiables in there. Other things I did was I made sure that I had other stuff going on as well, which is weird to say there, but I had to do stuff to fill my own tank as well. Exercise, reading, learning, which would all contribute back to that. And then there's also like me time, like hobbies. Like I had to make sure I had stuff going on. So, I had to make sure was still sociable with some friends because you will burn out. That shit's real. Where you're just like, this isn't worth it either. Fuck this. I'm done with this as well. So you don't burn out and quit and hit the wall. You had to make sure you're filling your own tank with certain things. So you just have to set up your schedule with those things in mind and prioritizing what's important to do and not overloading yourself. Yes, you have a task list. Yes, you have a billion things to do, but what's that 1 to 3 things that you can get done today, or you don't go to sleep until you get done today, you know uh to move you on to the next level tomorrow.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's things like I kept my schedule very simple with certain things that I was doing. um you know 2 hours of, and I'm going to throw in some numbers here, just quotations around them and whatnot. 2 hours of highly concentrated work is equal to probably like 6 to 8 hours of unconcentrated corporate American work.
Yeah, like check a
Where
face.
like I'm gonna, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm gonna just check email. I'm just gonna respond to fires. I'm gonna go get a coffee. I have lunch. Half hour before lunch is useless. Half hour after lunch is useless. The coffee time, you're wasting a half hour in the morning talking to someone bullshitting, all that stuff. When you're by yourself in front of a computer and you have your list in front of you and like, for the next 2 hours I'm working on this, and it's not that you're sitting down for 2 hours looking at that. You're setting a timer for like 25 minutes and you're going, I'm going to work my ass off for 25 minutes, but
Yeah,
after
so
that my brain probably can't concentrate on it anyway. So I'm going to
Mhm.
get up, I'm going to walk around, I'm going to do some push-ups, I'm going to go outside, I'm going to breathe some fresh air, maybe close my eyes for a little bit, just do a little breathing for another minute, and that 5 minutes is up, I'm back in it. Next 25 minutes of work. So time blocking, that's a little hack that I utilize. I haven't done that in a while and I probably should, but that was something I did a lot in the early days, utilizing a timer right on my desktop.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's key, man, because you can sit and work like you're saying for 8 hours, but like, is it effective work, right? And like,
Correct.
yeah,
Correct.
sometimes it's not because hey, we've got our phone sitting right next to us, and like, hey, something pings on Instagram. You're like, oh, squirrel. Like, let me check this out. And then there's some studies too. Like, I'm not gonna like try to say exactly what it is, but it takes an X amount of time. Like once there's a distraction to like
To
get
get
back
back into.
in that
Hmm.
flow state.
Yep.
It is surprisingly long too. It's like if my phone pings and I look at it and then I go right back to working, like it's gonna take me like 20 minutes to like get back into that zone.
Yeah,
Um,
and that's another like distraction free things.
yeah,
So whether you're listening to a certain music, because you can do that, believe it or not, I've got two pieces, two things that I listen to when I'm really concentrating trying to do something. One, for some reason, I had one of my first mentors. He's a big Halloween style guy. Um, Halloween theme song, Micah Myers fucking theme song. Put that shit on loop, and like for some reason I get in the zone. That Last of the Mohicans
oh
and
yeah, that'd be a great one. That's
Time
incredible.
by Hans Zimmer, which was the Inception soundtrack.
Yeah,
Couple
yeah,
of those things on loop, and like
yeah,
I'm in the zone. It's almost like Pavlov's dog, like I can
yeah,
really concentrate. The other thing, put your phone on silent, turn it off.
yeah,
Certain periods of the day you can't, or if you have the kids, and I get it, like certain things going on. Now they have apps these days and things like that, and iPhones you could probably even set up these days that you can only let certain phone calls and emergency things come through, and everything else is just shut the fuck off.
Yeah.
Like you were concentrating during that time. Have containers. And I hate saying like you have to have discipline. You have to have discipline. You know, if you create habits, you don't need the discipline. Then it's just a little bit of discipline to create the habit. It's that kind of inverse thing. But once you have a little bit of that distance, set the container. Like I'm only going to check social media for 10 minutes right before lunch or first thing in the morning, when you start work, you know, to respond to things that happened over the night and this and that. And honestly, you don't even have to do that shit, you know, because I don't like doing that. It's like checking emails first thing in the morning. Like you should get your first and main priority tasks done, your most heavily concentrated stuff done first thing in the morning. And then, like I said, right before lunch, check your social media and stuff like that. That's like if you have a true problem with like ping, 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 I have to respond, I'm always on there. And don't joke yourself like, oh, I'm never on social media. Go to your fucking screen time and see how long you're in
Yeah.
that app.
Yeah. Do an audit.
It wakes you up real quick. You're like, oh, I spent an hour and a half yesterday on social media. Yeah, that's an hour and a half you're never getting back in your entire fucking life.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
That's it. Yeah. Imagine if you would have like had an hour and a half of effective work, like
Yeah.
what you accomplished during that time.
Yeah. And I've got multiple social media accounts and stuff like that. Like I get it. You got to control it. But you also get to a certain point where you can outsource some of that stuff too as well. And there's VAs that can help you with that on the cheap, so there's tips and tricks and hacks to get through a lot of that you learn along the way as well. But it's you get me back in the zone from 5 years ago. Put me back in that. I can picture my chair at the kitchen table, while I'm doing this stuff right now. It's really cool. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's, I'm sure it's kind of some nostalgia. Like I was on the phone with Amazon at like 11:30 last night
Oh yeah.
trying to fix
Yeah.
this one stupid issue I've been having for like the past 2 months and
Oh
we were
yeah.
chatting about before it. And yeah, it's just, you kind of find the time when you can. And, especially like, I'm still in the corporate world, right? So I've kind of have to have even like tire containers and I'm not
Hmm.
perfect with it. And then I've got a new baby
Oh
too. So
yeah.
like, everything's out the window. So I've just got to be, and I'm not the best at it. Like I said, it's stuff that I've got to actively work on. Is like, hey, what are the needle movers? What are the 2 or 3 things that I can get done? Like, when am I going to get them done? How do I block off those distractions, etc. Just to move the ball forward. And I think, a big thing too is like there's going to be seasons of life.
Yeah.
Um,
Hmm.
and like right now, like I've got new baby, right? So like this is going to be a pretty like hectic, busy season for me, like family wise, right? And so I'm going to have to think about how am I going to structure my day to help meet that season. And like there will be another season in life where hey things are a little bit more steady. I've got more time, and like maybe that's where I drive the ball forward like even further on business.
Hmm.
So yeah,
Yeah. The other thing is giving yourself some grace as well. Like if you don't get that thing done for tomorrow, and this isn't like you got to be careful of the complacency that sneaks in, but giving yourself some grace, like we hold ourselves to like such high expectations that we have to do this, we have to get this done, we have to do it for tomorrow. Like the world's not going to end if you don't get it done for tomorrow. Like you got fucking 1 hour of sleep last night because the baby was up crying. You got your other kid that woke up because the baby was crying,
yeah,
and then you got your oldest saying, "Shut the fuck up, everyone! I'm trying to sleep as well." Like it's like I get it. Things happen, and you got an hour of sleep. Like maybe you should go just sit down on the couch for a while so that you don't unleash all hell on your family, you know, without control. So it's one of those things. Like you gotta make sure you keep yourself in check as well.
yeah. And then the other thing I wanted to talk about too, Craig, was like you talked about filling your own bucket, right?
Hmm.
And like, what do you do on a daily basis to make sure that bucket is filled, to make sure that like you're in the right mind space to be effective with your time when it's time for work, so that
Yeah.
like all the distractions are gone, like you feel like you're in a good spot.
Yeah. Well, I think having a routine or a schedule definitely helps. And like I don't have my schedule built out to every single minute. And I know that does work for some people. And if it works for you, cool. I don't like the rigidity of it. And I understand discipline equals freedom, things like that Jocko says and whatnot. But you have to tailor things to how it works for you, right? So I journal, journaling, schedule, gratitude list, affirmations, things like that. Nightly and in the morning. So, closing out the night, but also setting up a schedule for tomorrow so I know what I'm doing first thing in the morning. Exercise built into it. I'm fortunate enough to have a sauna in my house, that I've earned and rewarded myself with
Mm.
after all these years. We were talking about that a little bit, rewarding yourself. So I exercise first thing in the morning, jump into sauna, and this is all prior to anyone waking up in the family. Um,
What's wake up time? What's bedtime for Craig?
so wake up time, I have the alarm set at 5:10, and I'll naturally wake up before the alarm. I think my circadian rhythm is just kind of set up that way. Sometimes it's a bit too early, like 2:30, 3:30, somewhere in there. I'm like, nope, nope, nope. If it's after 4:30, I'm getting up. So it's
Yeah.
just one of those things. And then go right downstairs into exercising after I drink some, Tedco. So
Yeah.
yeah, like
What about,
that.
what about bedtime? I think like the
Yeah.
morning routine has been the easier one for me to
Mhm.
do because nobody's up, right?
Yep.
And like there are no distractions. It's been tough for me the past couple weeks
Of
with
course.
me. But hopefully in the next couple weeks I'll get back into it.
Yeah.
But the bedtime one has been tough for me,
Mm.
right? It's like, hey, we get home from softball, it's already 8 o'clock, like it's already past bath time. I've got to rush, get the kids
Mhm. Yep.
bath. We got to fit dinner in there somewhere. We've got to like read the kids book, do story time, like the whole
Yeah.
bedtime routine
Yeah,
is
there's a whole routine. It takes a couple hours
yeah,
sometimes.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's like 7:30 to like 8, like 9 is like bedtime. And
Yep.
then after that, like there's still a million things on my plate I gotta get done, right?
Yeah.
And like I want to get the amount of sleep that I know I need to be effective. But it's like, hey, if I don't get this done, same thing like you said, it's not the end of the world, but like, there's stuff that like I'm obligated to do, right? Like hey,
Yeah.
we got laundry, I want to like help out my wife there, like there's the dishes, I gotta do that. And
Mhm.
so like do you have a certain bedtime routine of like, hey, I'm shutting it down at this time, and then like how do you get yourself in the mind frame to shut it down?
Yeah. Usually the kids are in bed by around 9 o'clock. For us, uh, plus or minus sometimes and whatnot. And then I can usually, kind of debrief, calm down. I'll go on social a little bit to just tidy things up for the night. Might catch a half hour of TV in there. Usually I start shutting down around 10, and by 10:30 I'm probably in bed. Um,
Okay.
More or less. Sometimes it's a little bit later, but I know that if I stretch it a little bit later, the next morning is going to be a little bit more groggy.
Yeah.
And that's okay here and there, as long as it's not the norm. But probably between 10 to 10:30 is when I start to rack out.
Okay. So that's a good like what, like 7 hours or so, right?
And
Close
if
to
I'm up at 4:30 at 10, it's about six and a
yeah.
half, somewhere in there.
Okay.
If I go more than, and I've noticed this because there was a period of time where I wasn't waking up earlier, I was exercising in the middle of the day or whatever it might be. Um, if I got like more than 8, like body starts to get sore, and I'm also groggy
Yeah.
because I got too much sleep. It's
Yep.
like one of those things. So you kind of have to find your sweet spot and where things work. And after doing it for a period of time, creating that habit and circadian rhythm playing into it, like your body will naturally start to shut down and it'll kind of naturally wake up in the morning.
Yeah. I think some things that have helped me with that, and like I'm gonna start to get back into over the next couple weeks, once things calm down at the house, is setting like you have a wake up alarm, right? Like
Hmm.
you have a go to bed alarm, and
Yeah.
it's not like the alarm goes off, I close my eyes. It's like the alarm goes off. Okay, it's time to start shutting it down, right? And
Yeah.
like preparing my body and my mind to like start getting sleepy, and like that.
Yeah, I don't want to say I have, like, I used to have that issue where like mine would still race really late
Yeah,
at night,
yeah, I just
right?
like sit in bed and like, like the blue light's been on my eyes for 9 hours straight and
Yeah.
like thinking about stuff, right? And yeah, it just kind of helps you like
Yeah.
get in the
It,
mind space. And like what I've done that has helped out is like, all right, hey, the alarm goes off. Like let's say it's at like 9:30 because like 10:30 I want to be to bed. So I
yep.
give myself an hour. I'm like, okay, I'm done with social media. I'm like,
Hmm.
I'm done with that for the day. Like I'm done with any work stuff for the day. And then like kind of naturally like put the lights down a little bit, right? Like
Yeah.
turn the lights off in the house, kind of like make it a little bit
Yep.
darker. Just stuff like that. And if you want like a little sleepy time tea or something like that, kind of have like a routine
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
gonna help you get ready for bedtime too.
Yeah. And I do that as well. I mean, I do take a supplement at night to help out, and it's very low dose. I think they said it's like melatonin-ish gummies with L-theanine and
Yeah,
something else I forget. I think they suggest like a serving of 2 gummies. I literally take about a third of a gummy.
yeah,
It's like very, very low, but I find that just little bit like helps me kind of stay asleep. And I've gone through stages where I had trouble falling asleep, but then once I got to sleep, I'd sleep well. And then I've had trouble where like I'd go to sleep really easy, but I'd wake up in the middle of the night mind racing.
Hmm.
Right. So I found that this little supplement helped me just kind of level that out.
Okay, cool. So I got
Um,
an idea then.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Uh, so that's one thing that helps out a little bit. I also go lights off. Like once kids are in bed, lights are off in the house.
Yeah,
Walking through the dark type thing. I'll set my clothes up for the next day. I set my fucking Tedco up for the next day. All that's ready so that I just walk downstairs, get dressed, have my drink, and I'm already exercising.
yeah,
So that's all nice and quick. So that's nice and easy. Um, Going to sleep at night, just through the normal like wash my face type thing. Just nothing special there. Just getting ready hygiene wise for bed. I never used to do this until we moved to the new house because at the old house we never had a TV in the bedroom. Got to the new house and there was one in there. Um, I'll watch like it's even if I can get through like 15, 20 minutes of TV. Like if I'm in bed, it's mostly just, and I won't go to sleep if something's on, but just to like wind down watching something that's like very monotonous and like kind of just ridiculous. And I'm addicted to the Grand Tour, which is like the old, oh damn, I'm blanking right now, but it's like a car show.
okay,
Um, where guys are racing cars around and stuff like that.
okay.
Um, I've
Yeah,
watched that. I've watched some cooking shows like late at night. It's like little things, and I'll watch it for like 10, 15 minutes, and then like I catch myself drowsy,
yeah, and
and then I'm like,
it's
okay,
probably just more
off,
of a
and then I shut off.
yeah, it's probably just more of a routine than anything, right? It's
And
like I
I think
know
it
I
is.
do this before
Yeah,
bed, so like
yeah,
I do the same thing with reading.
yeah.
Uh, I'll read and then like with an intention of like, all right, I'm gonna read a chapter here, before bed, and then it's like the last thing I do, and my wife makes fun of me because I turn all the lights out and I have my red headlamp in bed, like reading a book, so like I don't
Yeah,
want to keep anybody awake, and
yeah.
like I'll usually make it through like 3 pages, and I'm like, like drown
So
out,
so I used to do that a lot as well. When I had trouble falling asleep, even this was like prior to business stuff and whatnot. Now, what I saw that it did was it trained me that when even during the day when I'd read a book, like
yeah,
I'd
make
get
it,
through a few pages and I'd start to get drowsy.
yeah,
And I'm like, no, 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 this is not good.
yeah,
So like I put the kibosh on that because that's what I saw happening to me
yeah. I hadn't thought
personally.
about that.
Um, so it's because it takes me I'm not a very fast reader. I usually have to read things a couple times to let it sink in. But I was like, oh no, this whole sleepy thing while reading is not a good thing. So so I X'd that out. But
I think for
something,
me it's like cognitive dissonance because like I turn on the red lamp and I go back to like I'm on guard shift, right? I
yeah,
gotta stay
yeah,
awake.
yeah,
But then also I have the book that makes me sleepy. So
makes sense, makes sense. I hear you on that.
so
Something else to help with the mind racing is part of the nighttime journaling routine
yeah.
that I think will help. Whether you do it right before bed or whether you do it maybe as you start your nighttime routine that hour beforehand.
I've never been a big journaler, man. Like what type of stuff are you
Oh,
talking
and people overcomplicate journaling. Like me, it's scheduling and my task creation. So I'm getting stuff out of my head there a little bit. Um, but if we start like my journaling starts the night before type thing, and that's part of the scheduling aspect and tasks that I want to do the next day. To the next day, and it's not like as soon as I wake up. Some people do it as soon as you wake up. Mine's like, okay, the family's out the door, things are quiet. You know, Maybe I just ate some food and I'm journaling as I'm eating or something along those lines.
about?
But I go through three things that I'm grateful for,
Okay.
three affirmations, um, and reviewing those tasks and whatnot. So it's like very easy. It's less than a
Okay. So not like
4 minute routine.
your diary or anything.
Oh no, 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 no. Journaling is not a diary, in my opinion. Um, that's my opinion. It can turn into one and getting stuff out of your head, and that's where like a brain dump kind of comes into play
Yeah.
there, which will be more helpful at night because you're getting shit out of your head at night.
Yeah, I
You
would say
know?
that's something I found to be effective too, and I've gotten out of the habit of doing it, and I probably need to get back into it. It's like I have
Yeah,
a lot of ideas at night,
yeah,
like right before bed, and then if I don't like jot them down, like one, it's gonna keep me up thinking about it.
yep,
Two, like I'll wake up and I'll forget and be like, shit, what was that awesome idea for my
yeah,
business? I totally forgot. So it's like serves two purposes: is like getting it out and documented,
yeah,
but two, by getting it out and documented, you can release that from your brain, right? So you're not thinking about it.
yeah. So there's that for the morning, and then at night, and it's a very quick one again. Is um, what are three things that you can improve upon from the day? Like
Okay.
I don't want to say losses per se, but like failures that you can improve upon, right?
Yeah.
You didn't get this done. Well, why? Why didn't you get it done? Were you
Yeah.
scrolling
Like,
on social media? Well,
yeah.
what can you do to correct that? And then three things that went really well for the day. I got this task done. And why did I get that done? Because I did this, and you don't have to get very in depth. Like you're talking like one sentence things, but it's just the process of thinking about it. And then I'll finish with three things I'm grateful for again. The hard part on a grateful list is trying to make something different from like day to day because you get
Yeah.
into a routine of like, I'm grateful that my family's healthy. I'm
Yeah.
grateful that my family's healthy,
Yeah. I
and you're
definitely,
like, no, 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 no,
that's
no.
like my 5-year-old and 3-year-old. We do an exercise at dinner every night, where I say like, "Hey, what's something that like made you happy today?"
Yeah.
And then I say, "What are 3 things that you're thankful for?" And it's always the same thing. It's like I'm thankful for my family. I'm thankful for school. I'm thankful for this food. And I'm like, no, no, no. Like,
Yeah.
you get something new.
Get it. This is something I just started with my kids because I saw that Sarah Blakely was raised this way. Sarah Blakely is the creator of Spanx,
Yeah.
the leggings brand, who's multi-billionaire type
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
Her father at dinner every night embraced failure and asked her,
Okay.
"What did you fail at today?
Wow.
And what could you improve upon?" So it's a little bit of like what I was talking about with the journaling, but you're asking the
Yeah.
kids now because you're normalizing failure
Yeah. So
to
it's
be
okay.
okay so that they
Yeah.
can constantly
Learn from
strive
it.
exactly and learn from it and go forward and saying
That's
that like
powerful.
it's okay. Yeah.
I might start asking that at dinner. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a good one. And then her husband, Jesse Itzler, puts out a lot of great stuff as well.
Yeah. Mm.
He's another very, very successful entrepreneur,
Yeah. Murky
also.
Jets, right?
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Marky Jets. So, like the two of them together, because it's very funny because they're very eccentric. Like, just like she, like she doesn't have. I would say that she may not have a lot of street smarts, but she's very brilliant.
Mhm.
Like she'll go out the house with like two mismatching shoes. I'm like, really? And then he's just like all over the place, like running ultra marathons and
Yeah.
doing this and like going to boardroom meetings with like wigs on and shit. And I'm like, that's awesome. So it's kind of making things fun, right? But getting back around, I think that's something cool that maybe you can implement at the dinner time. And don't get me wrong, if people see me hanging my head down now, I fucking hate dinner time with my
It's
kids.
the worst thing
Yeah,
ever.
I hate it. My kids
Yeah.
like get so silly. They don't listen. I ask them a question. It takes me 4 times to ask them. My wife starts getting agitated. They aren't eating. They're
So
already onto like, are we having a special treat tonight? I'm like, you didn't touch your freaking
yeah,
meal.
yeah.
Well,
Like
I don't like this. Make me something different.
it is
Motherfucker, I
hilarious.
just slaved for an hour making this food.
Yeah, like it is the most frustrating thing in the world, man. Like I post on Instagram questions all the time, like how can I get my kids to eat their flipping dinner? Like, and my wife and I will sit down, like we try to have a nice dinner, like at the table, like as much as we can. Like if
Yeah,
there's
yeah,
softball or something, we can't. But if we're at the house and there's something going on, like we're having a night, like a sit down
yeah.
dinner,
Hmm.
and we will sit down and we will both look at each other and just be like, I hate this so much.
Yeah.
Like it's just the worst thing ever. And
My,
like I want to love it. I love my kids, but
no, agreed. And we are. I try to find the benefit out of be like, or at least we're all sitting down
yeah,
together. At least they recognize that like this is what a normal family does.
yeah,
And I don't want to say normal family. Let's just say like it'll be more healthy for them to have a family meal like this
mhm,
than scattered all over the place or them just eating by themselves and I'm scarfing food down at the counter in the kitchen or stuff like that. And so I know that as we grow older, they'll get a little bit more mature and we'll be able to have conversations because they'll believe that that's the normal thing to do at
yeah.
the kitchen table. So it's right now in that period of time, and you're right there with me that it's like they're just rambunctious and all over the place. And if the music's on, they're trying to dance and do
It's so
cartwheels and
frustrating.
handstands. And I'm like, eat the fucking food. Like, what's
Yeah,
going on?
the only thing that kind of works and it still doesn't work, is like I say, "Hey, when I'm done with my food, we're done. Like, dinner is over."
I wish we could do that, but like I scarf my food
Yeah,
as cold as it is after they're all served.
yeah, like
But
last night it's ridiculous, man. Like I give them stuff they like, right? Like
yeah,
I try to get them to eat things that like are healthy for them and things,
yeah,
but like they have to eat,
listen,
right? They have
yeah,
to eat food.
yeah, I
And
agree.
so like last night I gave them like chicken nuggets,
Mhm.
macaroni and cheese,
Yep.
and like healthy like Cheeto things, like the healthier Cheeto
Yeah,
ops or
yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
And like they love that stuff. And like neither one of them touched anything. And they're like, "Hey, let's have a dance battle tonight," And I was like, well, not if you don't eat your food, you're not, And of course, they didn't touch, they didn't touch their
Yeah.
plates. It's just so frustrating, man. Yeah. Anyway, if anybody's listening that like knows how to get their kids to eat, Craig and I
Yeah.
could use some help.
So some child behaviorist,
Yeah.
can chime in here.
Yeah.
Reach out to Drew and I. We're gonna start a tandem podcast just on like how to get kids to eat better and like have people call in.
Yeah.
Tell us your ways.
The only thing that I can get them to do is they'll eat gummies at night, like multivitamins.
Yeah.
I'm like, hey, at least like they're getting something.
Yeah.
But well, Craig, man, we've been on for like a little over an hour, so I know you got some stuff to do, and I've got to get back up to family time, man. But we'll wrap. So I guess like the last thing that I'll ask you is, a lot of people listening are kind of in that same space that you were in, that I'm in currently, right? Of like, hey, this season of life has been like really tough, really busy. Maybe things at the job are not quite like what I want them to be. I'm thinking about breaking out. Maybe not. Like maybe they want to stay in corporate life, but they just know that like they're missing something. Like what are a couple of tactical things that you would say, hey, do this over the next couple of weeks, and like hopefully you'll start to see a little bit of improvement. Just they can take the first step.
Yeah, I'd join some groups, and this doesn't have to be a paid thing, Facebook groups, whatever it might be, and just kind of get some experience from others on what they're doing. Because not for nothing, like a lot of this isn't all. It's not all sunshine and rainbows, right? Like there's a whole level of anxiety and stuff, and I've mentioned that word a couple times, but it's true. There's the level of angst and stuff that comes along with having your own business and whatnot. Like I've got several people in the team and stuff like that I've got to make payroll for, and it just breeds a whole new level of stuff. And not everyone, quite frankly, is cut out for it. And if you like your corporate job, like cool. I just didn't like mine anymore. I couldn't do it anymore. Um, but I mean, reach out to people and just ask them about certain questions and about what their experience is and whatnot. And kind of like what Drew's done here with me. Tell me your story and what's going on. Like lean into people, ask them to have a coffee. If you know someone very successful business owner, friend of yours, hey man, can I have a coffee with you? Like you'd be surprised how far you get asking a favor of someone like that. Like most of the people will say yes.
Yeah.
So lean into others and get their experience from it. So that's kind of one of those things I say. And then, I've said it a couple times in the podcast here. I'm someone that kind of trusts my gut. If I've got a gut feeling on something, more or less, that's something that I should probably do. That's the world telling me to do something. And I've followed that a couple times. I'm not saying it's always led me in the perfect direction, but it got me to move, and I wasn't stagnant. So it's one of those things. Definition of insanity. Doing the same thing day in and day out and expecting a different result, right? So make small changes and then see how things respond to that. You don't have to quit your job today and go into something completely different tomorrow, but change one small thing up and see what happens.
Yeah. Well, Craig, man, first of all, thank you so much for coming on, having this chat. And thank you for your friendship, your mentorship, over the past year or so, man. It's been like awesome to get to know you. And looking forward to our relationship continue to develop, continue to foster. And if there's anything that I can do, I know you're like, you're a little bit further along than I am, but like, if there's anything I can do to help, that Tedco can do to help, like 100% happy to do it. The message that you're sending out, that High Speed Daddy is sending out, is exactly what guys need to hear. So just super appreciative of you, our relationship, and just things that you're putting out in the world, man.
Likewise, same back to you, man. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, hey, guys, that will do it. We'll see you on the next episode.